when I first noticed it, it was a crazy scenario. I was having dinner with some friends and I was laughing so hard that all of a sudden I felt like a temple headache. I got home and my mom was watching my kids and I was like, do you see this bump right here? Because I could feel it. And she's like, oh my goodness, that's definitely a bump. You need to go get that checked out. So he had me doing antibiotics for about 2 weeks. And like within that time, I could see it growing. Like it was definitely not just small anymore. It is cancer. It is a sarcoma. When I went, the doctor she ordered an ultrasound and it was just a local doctor. And she's like, well, it could be like a bacterial issue. You could have an infection, and then it's causing the bump. So they did the ultrasound and it came back as a swollen lymph node. So they were like, we need this probably biopsied. I go to our local general surgeon. We really only have one, like in a small town. And so he looked at it. He's like, well, let's do antibiotics first because I don't want to just cut into you. Thankfully, my friends were just like pushing me to like, you need to get in there quicker. And so I actually was pregnant at the time. Literally all of the signs you would get from any cancer diagnosis, I feel like fatigue or shortness of breath or maybe joint pain or anything like that was out the window for me because I was pregnant. So I was like, I have that all the time because I'm carrying a child. And so I really didn't have any of the typical signs, just the bump on my head. I went ahead and contacted my OB because I told him what was going on and I asked him if it was normal for lymph nodes to like maybe act up when you're like pregnant hormone wise. And he said, no, probably not to that extent, but I am friends with the local surgeon. So I will text him. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you, God. I was like, it really is all about the people that you know, especially in really any circumstance, but definitely small town perks is like everyone kind of knows everyone. He messaged him, got me in sooner. He went ahead and did the whole surgery. He came back and he's like, well, I think it's a cyst. It looked more like a cyst and it felt like a cyst, so I'll still send it in and don't worry about it, all that jazz. So a week goes by, I don't hear anything. And then another week goes by, and then he finally calls me, and he's like, so we got back the results. It is cancer. It is a sarcoma. Now, we haven't heard what type of sarcoma it is because there's hundreds of sarcoma types. And so, I mean, since we are in a small town, they had to, like, ship the tissue. So they were just, like, waiting to hear back. Finally, it came back as Leiomyosarcoma. And he referred me to the local oncologist. We only have one. And from there, I met with him, and he immediately is just like, I have nothing for you. I don't see any sarcomas, but we do have a sarcoma center at KU Med. So KU Med is about 2 hours away. So I schedule an appointment with KU Med. They're booked about a week out. So in the meantime, I feel like I am my own advocate. So I do my research online with leiomyosarcoma, and it's not a pretty sight to see, honestly. It's pretty scary. So most of the time when I meet people who have the same diagnosis, the first thing I say is like, don't Google it. Like, do not Google it because it's just so unknown of a disease because of how rare it is that Googling it will just be like, oh, well, you're going to die. From there, I went ahead and looked up MD Anderson because I knew that they were a huge cancer center. And I messaged them and they called me that same day. And I had just filled out like an online form. So that was alone like impressive. So they immediately got back to me. They immediately booked me. It was 2 weeks out, so I was like, okay, I'll see KU first, and then I'll get my second opinion at MD Anderson. So I go meet with the KU doctor, and he's a sarcoma specialist, and he says, I've only seen one sarcoma on the head, and I have never seen leiomyosarcoma. So that, of course, was a hard thing to hear, because you want your specialist to know everything. And so he said, since I was pregnant, and they already did the biopsy that took out my tumor. The biopsy did only take out like no surrounding tissue, like 0.02 millimeters of tissue. So normally that's probably not what you would want to see. They weren't like afraid of it. They're like, oh, if it comes back, it'll come back in the same spot. Like, you're pregnant, we'll wait till it comes back, and then we'll do a full body scan. Because also, little did I know, is that this type of cancer attacks the uterus. Well, I'm pregnant. Of course. So, besides ultrasounds to see if, like, the fetus is okay, there was really nothing I could do. And honestly, it made a lot of sense at the time. We went to MD Anderson, Houston, and it's about an 11-hour drive. And we left our 2 children back at home to make the journey. And on the way there, we were just like, oh, I bet they're just going to say the same thing. At least we're getting a second opinion, but they'll just say the same thing and then we'll just be back to where we are. So I'm going to take you through a day at MD Anderson. As soon as we arrived and met them, they had looked over the scans, they had looked at the tissue, they had done their research on me already, and they said, we need to do a surgery. We need to go back in, we need to get the surrounding tissue. This is not a wait scenario because of how fast it grew. The tissue sample that they took was high grade, so it's fast growing. So it was already stage 3 just because of that degree of growth. Knowing that leiomyosarcoma typically does start in the uterus because they actually found pieces or like, not pieces, but evidence of uterus in the tumor. So they're like, more than likely it might have started there. So then what else is happening down there? You know, like if it jumped from like there to there, I mean, your whole body. And so they went ahead and did the surgery. After that, we were like, okay, well, we did our part. Now, honestly, since you're pregnant, we do have to wait. Like, we have to wait. And then once you deliver, we can do a full body scan. So that was pretty hard waiting. And I mean, I spent most of the time praying and so thankful for the community that I had to help me along the way, because I had to miss a lot of work just to do all of that. And so the scans came back as clear. Now, that being said, I never did a PET scan. I only did a CT, trunk CT, because that's all my small town had to offer. And they didn't want me traveling with a newborn postpartum to Houston to just do a PET scan. So I literally did no other testing. And then my scans, since it's high grade, would be every 3 months I would do a scan. And they stuck to head and neck. It was just this past February, I discovered a little lump around my pelvis area, and it felt like a cyst. And I could tell like it was growing, because you think ingrown hair, you know. And I was like, nope, this is it. And so then I went straight to my OB, actually, even though I wasn't pregnant at the time. He's just a great guy. So I just went straight to him, and he's like, oh, well, I can do that surgery. I can take out that. So he went ahead and did it for me, and yeah, it came back as leiomyosarcoma. And we weren't surprised, just because knowing this type of cancer, it does return very easily and very quickly. And there's no real reason, like there's nothing hereditary, there's like no proven reason to why it happens, which is why it's so hard to detect, because the symptoms are also very mild symptoms. And unless you can visually feel or see the tumor, then you're not going to find it, unless by chance you do a scan and they find it. When that happened, me and my husband were on our way back to Houston. They switched me oncologists to an actual leiomyosarcoma specialist that was already at MD Anderson. And we really were in the mindset of okay, if it spreads, we do chemo. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is just the one and done like the last one. We don't know. Because the full body trunk scan that I had done in the past was clear that we know of. And so then when I did the scan, it was everywhere. I'm talking, it's in my elbow, I have it in my back, like a few in my pelvis, a few in my abdomen. I have 2 in my liver. I have 2 in my lungs. I have 1 in my thyroid. So it's everywhere. And honestly, at first I was overwhelmed with the fact that it was everywhere. And they said surgery isn't an option because there are too many. And they wanted to try chemo. So the dox is the red devil, and then the trab is linked with smooth muscle tissue cancer, which is what type I have. And so they combo it together, and they do 6 cycles, and then hopefully as long as they see progress, they'll stay on that, and you take off the dox at the 6-week or the 6th cycle, and then you continue with the trab for the rest of the year, and then they reevaluate. So I think the hardest thing going into that process was I am such a well, what if this happens? What are my backup plans? I need to know the backup scenarios. And it felt like they refused to tell me. They're just like, we need to try this first and then we will discuss. I was like, no, but really, I need to know. It's but if it doesn't work, what's the next step? So during the chemo process, they take a lot of tests. So they do a lot of heart tests to make sure that you're able to do the chemo and make sure your heart is capable of withstanding the dox because it attacks it a lot. So we did the heart test, but then I also got back my full MRI for my brain as well. And it turns out that I have a stenosis on the right side of my brain. So a very narrowing of the right side. My neurologist said, you cannot start chemo without me doing more tests on her. So when I heard that, honestly, I was like, thank you, God. I am not ready to start chemo because I feel like as a cancer patient, we're constantly just pushed start, go, go, go. There's no other options for you but chemo. So we needed to do it now. There's no waiting. And I felt like I needed that calm. I needed that wait. When that happened, I think I didn't end up going back for another scan before the first round of chemo for about 3 weeks. And so during that 3-week time, I had met with the neurologist, did the test, and everything turned out fine. I also took that time to fast and pray and just meditate on what to do, and felt like the internet also is a good way and also a bad way of learning about these things, because you do learn there's so much out there to do, but what's good, what's going to work for me, So it's just that's kind of the hardest part about, I feel being a cancer patient too, is that there's so many different routes you could take, and which one's actually going to work for your specific type of tumor is the hardest. And so during that time, I was just, I don't know, I did everything, I juiced, I cut out sugar, I did all the things you could think about. And so when I went back for my scan, it showed actually mild growth to no growth. So in my mind, I was like, I'm doing something right. I was like, okay, it's not growing, this is great. And so when I came back, I was like, okay, I'm going to start chemo if it's growing, because my family also thinks I'm procrastinating chemo. Because I did have, my dad passed away of cancer, lung cancer, and then my nephew just 2 years ago passed away with leukemia. And so both of those scenarios felt very toxic for me, just knowing about chemo and how hard it is on them and the quality of life, honestly, because it's I don't want my children to watch me suffer that way. That was my main reasoning, was I know how hard chemo can be. So it's why would I do chemo if it's going to make me sick? And so when I went back, it had grown. And so I started the chemo, and I learned a lot. So I'm on day 6 post chemo. I'm feeling way like myself. I would say I'm practically back to 100%. Now I switched my mindset to how to help the chemo hopefully work, because if it doesn't work, then I'm out of luck, So I learned actually that you should fast before chemo, because it helps the chemo grab hold or your body grab hold of the chemo a little bit quicker, but then also it helps a lot with the side effects. So I learned to do it 24 hours prior. So that's what I've been doing. And honestly, I feel like it's worked immensely. And then I've also started doing like cold plunges in the morning. And people think I'm crazy doing that, but I've also read it helps with your white blood count. So I'm like, we're doing it. Like, it's helping my white blood count. And then it also just like wakes me up. And honestly, I feel like that has been my motivation to wake up in the morning, because I'm like, I gotta get in this cold plunge.
So I just brushed this out of my head. Saturday. So my week 2 would have hit yesterday. Here it goes.
I had my scans this past week, and my tumors are shrinking. So I do know that the cancer or the chemo is working. If I'm helping it along, great. If not, and it's just doing it on its own, then so be it. But I'm not going to sit idle. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can to help it along, because I have children to live for. Like, my oncologist told me 3 years and maybe less if I don't do chemo. Chemo will grant me 1 more extra year of life. So that to me was like, well, why would I do chemo if it only grants me 1 extra year? But 3 years. So I'm like, okay, how old will my children be? And am I okay with that? And I'm not okay with that. So to me, it's more of I'm doing it for them, because just thinking about my husband without me, I'm like, oh my gosh, how will the house run? Like, what's going to happen? You're going to move in with your parents. Like, you'll just have to live with grandma and grandpa. And so I do it a lot for my children, and I think that's the best way to have motivation, but also you just have to have motivation for yourself. Like, you can't just be like, oh, I have cancer, so you just stop living. You know, it's like, no, yes, you have cancer, but shouldn't that be a motivation to live more? Like, to live to the fullest, to do what you can now, because you don't know what the future will bring. Guys, what do we think of Mom's pink hair?
It's horrible.
Horrible. It was a wake-up call for me, honestly, having cancer. It was a huge wake-up call of what am I doing with my life, and how am I spoiling it on worldly things and not doing more like for my community and more for him, and just living joyfully and living in love. And so that's been my mantra this whole time, is that I'm not going to let the cancer kill my personality. And now that they know that the chemo is working, I'll stick with that plan. I do have 1 tumor that's being picky and doesn't want to cooperate. I do have a list of questions, and if you know of any good questions to ask the doctor for their next chemo options, please put them in the comments. So I need to make sure that I'm never feeling low. I definitely have those moments, but it's not necessarily sadness. It's more of like, I'm thinking about like, I think more about other people's views when I die than I do myself, because I know that I'll be fine, but it's more of how their reaction will be. So I like to switch the conversation more on to other people. But it's just also eye-opening, because other people have things they're working with. It's not just me. Everyone has something, like a trial happening. No one is just living this happy life. Everyone has a trial. So how I view my trial changes the whole dynamic. So I choose to live happily and know that cancer is just going to be a part of me. And if this tumor wants to just hang out, then that's fine. Like, he's not bothering anyone. And then trying not to push people away. There will be a lot of people who might not reach out because they don't know what to say. So don't be offended by people for not reaching out, because they too are scared that they might say the wrong thing. Because I do notice that a lot with other people. Just love and give love and just choose happiness.